what's one of the most inspiring moments that you've experienced through your journey, either swimming or non-swimming related?
I would say all of the other Paralympians. I think that they are so inspirational, and the stories that they have behind their journey is incredible. And I wish that there was a way that they could share their stories and have a light shined on it, because it's so deserved.
Welcome to Social Kick. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a partial crew, Dr. John Mullen, and joining us from New York, Anastasia Pagonis. What's going on, Anastasia? How are you?
Hi, how are you guys? I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're pumped to get to talk to you. We are good, but we're here to talk about you and what's going on in training. But first, we always get some intro rapid fire questions to get us started. So as a Paralympic gold medalist, what's the dumbest question that you've ever gotten about being blind?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's just like such a long list of the dumb questions, but I get like, how do you eat? How do you dress yourself? Like, those are the worst ones. And then obviously I get the like, how do you swim? How do you do makeup? How do you do that type of stuff? But definitely how I eat and how I get dressed. I'm just like, okay. Love that.
Still a person. On the para, do you ever get para references? Have you ever been parasailing? Have you ever been used a parachute? Does anybody ask you these questions?
Actually, no. So
crisis averted.
I feel like we have a lot of jokes like with each other in the actual Paralympics, which is always like fun, but no.
All right. And then the last one is, what's one piece of swimming equipment you use that typical swimmers wouldn't use?
I use a tapper, which is for blind swimmers, and it's basically a pole with a pool noodle on the end of it, and that's how I know where the wall is. So it's basically like, you guys can see the line and the T. Well, I can't, so that's my indicator. And I get a little pop on the head.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you because, well, for lots of reasons, because you're so accomplished and
thank you.
and I love the fact that you share your story so openly. That's how we discovered you, is just how much you've shared and built up such a tremendous following and leveraging social media. But we've talked to a few folks on this show in the past. We've had Jamal Hill and Christy Raleigh Crossley from Team USA Para, and have learned about their classification some, but not as much on like blind or vision impaired. And so, but I grew up swimming in Georgia, and a lot of the meets that I went to, maybe early in my career, there was a competitor at the meet who used a tapper and had a tennis ball on the end of it. But I didn't train with him. He lived about 2 hours away on the different side of the city. So it wasn't somebody that I like got to know at all well or see on a daily basis. And so like, I mean, we want to get into a lot of things about like what you're up to and how you train. But first, like, yeah, what's going on training wise? Where are you in the season? And like, what's upcoming for you?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with kind of answering your first question, which was like explaining my classification a little bit.
Sure.
So, in the Paralympics, there's 3 vision classifications, and I have a progressive eye disease, so I've been through all 3 of them. So S13 is the first classification, and that is visually impaired. And then there is S12, which is legally blind. And then there's S11, which is the worst of the visually impaired, which is technically no usable vision. But we all have different kind of ways that we see as S11. So some people can see hand motions, some people can see like a pinhole out of their left eye or whatever it may be. And then some of them have no eyes and like prosthetic eyes. So to make the classification fair, we all wear completely blacked out goggles. And those goggles have to be checked in the call room before races and after races. Yeah.
Well, and, go ahead, John.
Yeah. So do all the different visually impaired classifications wear the same goggles at the competitions, or that's just the most progressive one?
Yes, so just the most progressive one. We're the only ones that wear the blackout goggles. For the most part, S13s don't use tappers at all. And then a handful, I would say like 50-50 for the S12s use them. And then as for the S11s, we all use tappers because when I was an S13, I wasn't able to see the T on the bottom, but I was able to see the different color in the lane lines. So you know how the lane lines get solid when the flags come? I basically swam all of my strokes as if they were backstroke, and I just counted my strokes from when I saw the solid mark. So, you know, each classification kind of has the way of using their vision to their advantage and kind of using it how they can. At this point in time, I just use the tappers and like obviously have to have a lot of trust in those people.
Yeah, what's the audition process to become your tapper?
You know what? I feel like you have to have like a genuine care about me. Does that make sense? Like if you don't genuinely care about me as a person, then like obviously you're not going to care enough to make sure that like if you wouldn't jump in the water like after me, then you're not worth the audition.
Who's your tapper?
So there's like 4 or 5 people that are able to tap me. So my home coach, and then both of my parents, my boyfriend, and then for Team USA, there's 2 people that tap me, and it's Kim and Nathan. They're both great tappers. All of them are. My mom needs a little work, but she's getting there.
Hey, no one's perfect, right? And I'm sure she cares for you.
Yes.
So with the tapper,
that's for sure.
Are you doing every practice with the tapper?
Yes, I train every practice with the tapper. There are some athletes that will use like sprinklers or count their strokes, but for me, it's not something that I can, you know, practice at the best level. So I always rely on tappers. I feel like with sprinklers and counting your strokes, it can be complicated, especially as like a distance swimmer when you're working on like pacing and different things. Like I might be coming in on a like 50 on 30 seconds and then the other one might be 35 and that changes your stroke count. So I always rely on the tappers.
Yeah, I didn't think about, you know, the stroke count and how visually impaired must be pretty in tune with stroke counts. But like you said, you're usually going different paces, but also, you know, when you're counting strokes, it's hard to think about it much else, right? Whether how far you're going or if you're working on a technical thing, right? It's like, you know, if you're just counting your strokes, it's hard to think, you know, oh, I want to make sure I'm getting that catch and things like that. So I could see why using a tapper is, you know, best for working on things, but it's also most race specific, right?
Yes, very much so. I mean, obviously, when I'm swimming a long distance event, I'm going to be tapped, you know, a little bit closer to the wall than I would be tapped in a full-on sprint event because I'm moving quicker. And then same for different strokes. Like butterfly, I've had a concussion from swimming fly into the wall, so I like to be tapped like super far out. So yeah, it kind of depends on the stroke.
What's the biggest faux pas that any of your tappers have made?
Oh God, I was on a college team and basically they put a tapper in that has never tapped me before, and I just crashed my head. Like I was in mid fly stroke with my arms back and I just smashed my head right into the wall. I was like, okay, that's lovely. Never doing that again. It took a really long time for me to like get comfortable with swimming fly into the wall. Like I'm still kind of traumatized. I actually am still traumatized.
Shoot, I bet. Jeez, but you're hard-headed, so you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So there must be like a sweet spot for tapping, right? I'm sure, I would imagine you get hit and you're like, oh God, that was like too hard of a tap, or like that wasn't right, or you know, wasn't how you want it. So how do you, I guess, get that through to your tapper, or is that just something that's kind of developed over time?
I think it kind of depends on each tapper. I have a lot of hair, so they aim for the bun in the back, and you know it's kind of like my cushioning, which is good for me. So yeah, I think that my mom taps me the hardest out of everyone because, she wants to make sure I'm really, really feeling it and there's not going to be any problems. But for the most part, it's like a light bop. That's what that's how I would explain it. Yeah, but obviously when I'm swimming like really fast, like if I'm swimming like a 50 free and I'm just going for it, you feel like the splashes from your competitors and like your splashes from yourself. So I like to get hit a little bit harder on the sprint events just to make sure that I'm not having any phantom taps, which I've had before.
That makes sense. I want to come back to some of the training stuff because we've certainly got a lot of tactical questions about the way that you operate at a high level. But I think it may be really helpful to just hear some of the background about the way that your impairments progressed over time. You mentioned even earlier, like your progression through the different classifications from S13 to S11. So I'd love to just like kind of start back around like your journey from early on, both physically as well as discovering swimming and progressing into swimming at a high level.
Yeah, I've always been like a very athletic person. I loved sports. I was playing soccer, and as you can imagine, that wasn't going well for me. So my doctor recommended that I get into a less contact sport, and he recommended swimming, and that's kind of how I got into it, and I fell in love with it. It was, something that made me feel free, and at the time I was swimming on an able-bodied club team. I was the only disabled person, and it was going good for me. I was holding my own. And then I had another drop in my vision, and it started becoming very hard for me to swim with other people in the lane. And, being on a club team is chaotic in itself. So you can imagine being like a blind teenager was just a disaster for me. So I started working privately with a coach, and that's kind of how we figured out, tappers and like where I want to be tapped and like how everything's going to kind of work for me. And I got into the Paralympics, and it was so cool to be able to race against people that were like me, because for my whole swimming career, I was racing basically against able-bodied swimmers. And that can take a beating on your mental health. So it was nice to be able to compete against people that were just like me. They kicked my ass. Irrelevant, but I'm making my way up. So at the time, it was just like my idols that I was racing against, which was so cool, but they were just like me. And it was really cool to have that experience. And I kept working, and COVID happened and the games got postponed, which was unfortunate, but it was good for me because I didn't have enough time to begin with. So it was nice to have that little extra year. And I kept training and grinding, and here we are.
Well, thanks. And I'm curious too to know just about, like, you jumped straight in too. I made the Olympics, like I qualified for the Olympics. And how did you make the transition from training with a group in a club team, besides just realizing that there were some challenges and unique needs that you needed to develop as an athlete? Like, how did you kind of like get into the para classifications, and then also like start competing in para competitions? And then like, when did that start? Because you qualified and then won medals in 2020, but like around what year and what time, what age were you kind of making that transition?
Yeah, I started at 13. That was like first meet I've ever been to for para. I was nationally classified as an S13. And I swam, not well, but I swam. I swam, I think Ohio. It was somewhere in Ohio. And the pool was awful for blind people because it went from like super bright windows for 25 meters and then like really dark. And my eyes could not, like, I was struggling. So that was my first meet. And then they're like, yeah, we're taking you to Italy. And I was like, I'm 13 years old and I'm going to Italy. Like, what the heck? I went to Italy. I got classified, and I got classified down to an S12, which I wasn't expecting. That was very hard for me. But I got through it and I swam really well there. I'm pretty sure I medaled in the 100 free there. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. My mom was the one who kind of found Paralympics and para swimming, and that's how it started.
So once you moved through that Italian experience and were classified, then that was kind of your arrival into, not only can I do this, but I'm classified and I can do it at a high level.
Yeah, exactly. And then right before COVID, I competed at a World Series in Melbourne, Australia. I medaled in 3 out of 4 of my events. I also got classified down there again. So I got classed down to the S11 and I started wearing the blackout goggles. And it was definitely a different experience and like very amazing to be able to compete again with people that are in the same level as me. That's something that's so important and special about the Paralympics is that you guys get to race against people that basically are the same as you. Maybe someone's a few inches taller or whatever. But like when I was swimming collegiate, like it took a beating on my mental health when I was racing against like all of these able-bodied girls. I was like, this is stressful. This is a lot for me. And then you don't want to I don't know. It's hard because they start clapping for you and you're like, oh man, is this a pity clap? You're like, oh God, I hope not.
Yeah. I pity clap John all the time though.
Oh yeah, it's fine. I do it to myself too, so it's okay.
I appreciate it, Bea, as always. So you mentioned being classified differently at the competition. Now, could you tell us how they do classify you? Is it, I'm sorry, this is a dumb question, but is it just simply a vision test or what else is maybe involved in that for you?
Yeah, so for visual classifications, it's just basically just a bunch of eye testing and you see a few different doctors. For physical testing, I believe that they also test you in the pool, but for vision, they don't do that. And you have to get all of the tests that they're requesting done. And then they come in, they look in your eyes, they basically look around, and then they're like, okay, we're classifying you as this. Obviously, it's much more thorough, but that's kind of the overview of how it works. And you come in with the huge stack of papers with all of the test results and everything on there, and you just hand it to them. And then they do their exams. It's usually multiple different doctors. Every time that I have been classified, it was 3 different doctors. And they were all from different countries.
Yeah, it makes me think, when you're an age group somewhere, you're looking at maybe the younger kids coming up and it's like, oh, we have some fast younger kids coming up that are going to be, maybe I need to have on my radar. But for para swimmers, you go to the meet and you might be classified differently. There's so much up and down, it seems, or changes within classifications. It must be hard to know who you're going to be competing against. And then obviously in swimming, we always say, oh, just focus on yourself and all that. But I'm sure you're aware of your other competitors in the different categories or classifications. I guess, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah. So when I was headed to Melbourne to get reclassified and swim there, I kind of had the expectation that I was going to be class down. I wasn't able to get around by myself. I really couldn't see. So I had a feeling that I was going to get class down to an 11. So I was kind of already mentally prepared and, stalking and finding out who, my competition is and everything. And I thought that I had, potential in the 400. And I ended up getting, class down to what I thought. And I swam that 400 there. Didn't do as well as I wanted to. I didn't make the national team there, I don't think. We have national qualifying times, and I don't think I made it there, but I made it at the next meet, which is good. But yeah, it's definitely can be confusing, trying to figure out who your competition is, or hey, will someone who's an S12 or an S13 be coming down to my classification soon, and trying to figure all that out. But I know for me right now, I'm trying to just focus on me. I can't go. There's no really classification movement for me because my vision's not going to get better and there's no way down for me. So, yeah.
So maybe with that line of thinking, what's going on now? Let's come back to what are you up to now training wise? And let's talk about the kind of progression into Paris.
Yeah, training's been good. I have not been in the pool it's kind of crazy to think about, but I got the clear from my doctor in January. I'm recovering from shoulder surgery. So I got the 100% clear in January, which is actually pretty crazy. I haven't been in the pool for that long. But, trying to find the happy medium of like pushing myself, but also not re-injuring myself. So it's definitely been complicated, but we're trying to take care of it. And then I will be headed to Indianapolis. Have you guys ever swam at that pool? I'm sure you have.
Well, is it the same pool is it at IUPUI or is it at the trials pool?
It's at Indiana University.
Yeah, wait, remind me, because I think that I heard some controversy about this, that the para trials weren't actually going to be at the same facility as the able-bodied trials. And I think maybe Christy, when we were talking about this and how they're
they never are. They never are. That's a whole problem of its own. Para doesn't get the sponsors that like Olympic trials get. That's just the facts of it. We're swimming in Minneapolis, which is where we had our last trials at. I like the pool there, but it's definitely not the same glorified, facility, and they make it all fancy and bougie, but it's okay. At least I can't see the surroundings, and a pool's a pool, right?
Yeah, totally. So wait, it's at IUPUI or it's at Minneapolis?
So that is a meet that I'm swimming in April. Our trials are in June in Minneapolis, but I'm swimming in Indy in April. That's just a
Cool.
World Series that we have. So I'll be swimming there, and then I'll be swimming at European Opens in Madeira, Portugal. So that will be nice. We had Worlds there 2 years ago. The pool's a little hectic. That pool's a little chaotic. So they have one elevator that fits one wheelchair, and there's like hundreds of disabled people. So you can imagine how that goes.
Wow.
Yeah, really. Plus in Europe, they have those. Do you ever experience those entries to the locker rooms whenever you swim at one of those pools where you come out of the locker room and you have to step into like a pool of water that's supposed to like clean your feet before you get onto the actual pool deck?
No, I've never seen that.
Oh,
I'm really glad that I haven't actually.
So disgusting. It feels like you're stepping in just like a pool of everybody else's foot filth.
Oh, that's so gross. That is gross.
John, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. They have them in Asia a fair amount too. So I'm sure you'll run across one eventually. So be careful.
Have them in Tokyo. So that's good.
That's good. Well, for Indy, get excited. I mean, my best 50 free time came in lane 8 in that Indy pool. So hey, there you go.
It's a quick pool. It's a quick pool. Everyone's always like the controversy with like the salt water and like that pool's quick though. I do like that pool, but I'm happy. I like Minneapolis. I mean, I swam good there at the last trials. So I'm hoping that I can bring the last trials energy to this one and hopefully be successful again.
So earlier you mentioned the Ohio pool and how it had a lot of light on one side, then it was dark on the other side. What other maybe nuances in pools impact visually impaired swimmers that we may not think about, whether it's depth of pool or just swimming outside versus inside?
Everything. everything matters. So yeah, like I said, when I had usable vision, the light was always something that like really, really threw me off. I know in Tokyo, obviously the like, what is it called? The lights. So the lights were obviously blasting because of, it's games and they're trying to make everything look pretty. And a lot of the S13s had to wear like tinted outdoor goggles because it was so bright. So there's a lot of things that go into it. For me personally, if the lane lines are not tight, I will be all over the place. Like just like swaying around with the lane line. I also don't swim in an end lane because if I dive in and get a little disorientated, I will go right into the wall, which we don't want. And like swimming outside is always very iffy for me. If there's like any wind or anything, I'm like getting blown around with it. Cause I don't obviously have the ability to like look at the line on the bottom and like follow it. I also don't swim with other people in my lane because it's just a safety hazard for everyone.
You mentioned not being on the side lane or, maybe the lane lines being tight. I was thinking, and I hope this isn't insensitive either, like how often a blind or visually impaired swimmer might run into the lane line during a swim practice.
Oh, always. A competition even. Like, yeah, that will always happen. My main competition in Tokyo, I was very lucky to have like a good race and I did not crash at all. But like in her 200 IM, she crashed like right away off the block into the lane line. And like that takes a few seconds. Like, A, you're crashing, and then B, you got to build your speed back up. And it's very, very aggravating. And of course, like the tappers, it's completely out of your control on how they tap. And you might miss a wall. You might be too close to the wall. And it's something that you have to kind of just hold yourself together and not let it get to you, because it can be very frustrating.
Okay, so
with all that,
go ahead, John.
I was going to say, with all that, you mentioned your story of butterflying, crashing into the wall.
Yeah.
Does every visually impaired swimmer have a concussion at some point in their career? Is that just like a badge of honor almost, as sad as it is to say?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know most of the girls in my classification have had a concussion and or multiple concussions. It's a badge of honor. Yeah.
Well, what about the shoulder surgery and the shoulder injury? What did you have?
I had my labrum done. I had basically it was torn back to front. I had 5 anchors put in. So yeah, I had that done back in the end of June. So it's coming together. I mean, she's working good, so hopefully she stays like that.
Is that about right? 6 months of recovery on that? John, do you have any experience kind of treating patients with that injury?
Yeah, well, the slap tear depends on a few things as far as if there's any other damage on the rotator cuff or also how many anchors are put in, like you mentioned, Anastasia. But yeah, usually you're getting back into that swing and hopefully you're at, getting close to full training volume again. Is that where you feel like you're at right now? Okay. Good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm back full swing. I was like progressively, adding in some more yardage, and like basically my doctor was like, you could do 40% now, 50% now, 60% now. And in January was when he was like, all right, you can do 100%. Like, good luck.
Do you think being visually impaired maybe increased your risk of shoulder injury? Obviously, shoulder injury is so rampant among swimming, but obviously when you're swimming, you can see your hands in front of you a little. And a lot of times it's, I want to see where my hand entry is, make sure my fingers are flat. Where you're visually impaired, you're relying so much more on feel that we talk about. So, you're constantly in swimming. So have you ever thought about that?
I actually haven't really thought necessarily about that. I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I feel like also as like blind swimmers, we use our other senses more than, an able-bodied swimmer. So I know if I'm crossing over a little bit, I'll feel that like that kind of that slip that you feel when you're pulling. And I'm like, okay, like I'm slipping a little. I need to like widen a little bit. And I also get crashy when my arms are like crossing over or like I'm not pulling correctly. I'll start like crashing into the lane lines and it'll get messy. So I feel like it kind of depends. I mean, yeah, it definitely could have a factor. I know that when I was recovering from my surgery, my doctor was like considering letting me in like a little early. And then he was like, oh no, like she can't see. She could very easily like crash and hurt herself and then like take all of the anchors out. So he was extra cautious with me with that because it's not like I'm an able-bodied swimmer that can just like really lightly, start stroking. I could very easily swing my arm over the lane line, get caught, and like tear all those anchors out.
Yeah, you need to bring like 3 versions of your mom to the pool at the same time to tap the hell out of you before.
Exactly.
Well, this brings up a topic I was curious about with technique and how you learn. You must be a tremendous listener, but also at the same time must be really coachable to be able. I mean, like it must be the case, and I'm just curious about like what you've learned in terms of how to make technical changes, and how that shows up in coaches that you've had, and some things that you've had to work through to develop and hone a skill. I mean, that's hard enough in swimming, and one of the things that obviously anyone who's new to the sport of swimming later in life will discover is that it's so incredibly technical. And so you need to master those things, and that happens over a period of time. But like taking one of the senses away and developing that skill is certainly limiting the ability to just like think about how it should be to start off with before you even try it. So I'm just curious about like your journey in developing like good technique in swimming.
Yeah, I'm still learning every day. So I prefer like very hands-on. So like my coach will grab me out of the water and like just grab me and be like, put your arm here and put your arm here. And sometimes, honestly, when I was recovering like a few months ago from the surgery, he would fully get in the pool with me and be like, no, like this is how you have to do it. And, trial and error. But definitely like physically moving me to the positions that it needs to be done. That's the best way that I've figured out works for me. But I feel like there's every day, like there's always a different thing that you could learn with swimming. There's like so much. I've definitely been trying to work on my technique since I, wasn't able to be at full capacity for a while. So yeah.
Have you ever experimented with your coach using like the underwater headsets and being able to communicate with you while you're swimming that way?
Yeah, we actually were just talking about that. I have with my past coach, and we kind of tried to do that, but every time I would flip, it would like disconnect. So maybe there's better ones out now that like we could try, but I definitely think that would be something that is very beneficial.
John, are you still using the music when you swim?
No, I finally have broken away from constant music stimulation while swimming.
It's in your head.
Exactly. So I'm doing a little bit more of
I feel like
that.
everyone does that.
It's one of those things where like John's the guy on the on the walking path who's got his earbuds in and doesn't know that you're coming because he would listen to music while we're swimming in the group. But
I love that.
Do you miss training with a group? And do you have like other people around as a social activity? I mean, people always say, swimming's such an individual sport, but like I've never thought about it that way, even though a lot of my swims now are solo, but like growing up, it was a very social activity. So like, but you intentionally deviated from that path for your own development, but
yeah. So, I mean, when I was swimming club, it was obviously nice to have like all of your friends, and same with when I swam in college. It was definitely nice, but I wasn't getting the attention and the one-on-one that like I need to be successful. Like I need someone to be able to pull me out of the water and help me with things. And it also gets super chaotic with intervals because I have zero idea. Like if we're doing 50s on a really tight interval, or like any set for that matter on a tight interval, and I'm coming in, I have no idea when I need to leave. And like the coach is obviously yelling at the other swimmers to go and like everything, and every lane's on a different interval, and it just gets so chaotic that it was better for my safety and my mental health to like swim privately. And I definitely think that it helps with my success doing that. But I swim with a master's program twice a week, which is nice. Though y'all are quick though. Like some of you guys are really fast.
Some of us, I don't know, but I mean,
oh my gosh, no, like, yes, very, very fast.
Oh, you're fast. I can't even imagine swimming sub 5 minutes long course on 400 free without being able to see. Like that's hard enough as it is.
Thank you.
That's so so impressive. But so many different lines of thinking on that. So do you let's come back to goals. So, what are you aiming to achieve? You're obviously recovering from, surgery and back into training. So where's your mind at with like achievements this summer? And do you have time goals? Are you expecting to be at your best? Where are you with all that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely trying not to put an extreme amount of pressure on myself. Obviously, like coming back into this, it's a lot. And I feel like there's always, even if people aren't putting pressure on you, like you yourself, you're always putting pressure on yourself. But if we're thinking like logically, my goal is to have fun, try to be as close to my times as possible. But my real goal is hopefully to podium in all of my events.
Okay. Realistic goal. And I think you're on the path for it.
I hope so.
Yeah. So what you mentioned earlier about, I gave you some presumptive love and recognition about being coachable, but at the same time, you're talking about how there were some growing pains to get from, the early learnings and developing what your needs were, and you'd have some bad days. Like, what does a bad day look like now? Have you had some meltdowns? Have you cried in practice? Like, what is bad days like?
Always. I have just had really incredible luck the past few months of getting sick on repeat, which has been really annoying. So I've been getting sick like so often. So it's definitely been frustrating, like getting sick and then grinding and then getting sick again and then grinding. And like, it's like a step up and then a step back and it's a mess. I cried. What was it? It was like last week we were doing a awful distance set and something was up and I just like was not able to stay straight in the water. And I was like on repeat, like crashing into the lane line. And I was just getting like super frustrated. My flips were just like not on point. I was missing the wall and I was getting very aggravated. And then it's kind of like, take a step back and like, look at like everything. Like, I'm so lucky to be in a pool right now. Like, I'm so lucky to have the ability to do this. I'm so lucky to like even have like all of my limbs and like be able to feel every part of the water and, kind of just have to take a step back and look at reality and be like, okay, it's okay. Like, I got this. And then sometimes you push through the set, which is most of the time. But there's the few occasions where you kind of just back off and like try something else. Maybe you work on a different stroke and work on some technique. But yeah, there's always the meltdowns.
Have you ever gotten kicked out of practice?
Have I ever gotten kicked out of practice? You really think someone's gonna kick the blind girl out? No one's ever gonna kick the blind girl out. Would you kick the blind girl out? I doubt it. No, I've never been kicked out of practice. I would like to see
entitlement to me, Anastasia.
I would like to see someone kick the blind girl out of practice.
And if you're the only swimmer, doesn't practice just end? It's not like you're kicked out. It's just, all right, that's the end of the workout.
Yeah, that's very true too. When I was on club in college, though, I never got kicked out. So yeah. I've definitely left. I've definitely left, but not gotten kicked out.
Oh, so you've ended things. Well, yeah. When's the last time you skipped practice? Not counting surgery or like recovery, like legit you're in training and you should be there, but you're just having a day and it's not happening.
When did I do that? I feel like I usually don't really skip practice unless this doesn't even count unless I don't have people to tap me. But that's not even count as skipping because that's like not me doing it. I did. The last time I skipped, I got a partnership with Disney and I only skipped one practice though. And I had like a partnership with Disney. So I had to go to Disney, obviously. But it was only one practice. So it's fine. And then you make up for it with like a double or something.
What is your practice schedule like? And maybe after that, we can get into kind of your day-to-day routine, like you said, going to Disney and things like that. But I guess how often are you in the water right now? What does dry land look like?
Yeah. So drylands is usually like twice a week. I'm also still kind of, it's like a mix of like PT and drylands at the same time. Because my dryland coach is also a physical therapist. So I kind of, like you. So I get the best of both worlds. So I kind of have been doing that. And then training is, for the most part, I am trying to include 2 to 3 doubles a week. That's if I feel like up for it. Sometimes I get some pain in my shoulder and we have to kind of back off. But for the most part, that's like the main goal.
Like, how much volume are you doing at these practices?
Yeah, it definitely depends on what we're focusing on. If I'm doing, like a distance free set, it'll be like 6 to 7K meters. But like if we have like a sprint set, it kind of is all over the place for the most part. It depends on, again, what we're focusing on.
Man, 6 to 7K meters is quite a lot. Jeez.
Yeah, distance swimmer.
And I'm assuming long course is preferred training for you?
Yes, except there's not much long course. The less walls, the better. Like, please, yeah. I would love that. I don't really get a lot of long course training here. I swim short course meters right now.
Okay, but you said distance swimmer, but I mean, you're winning medals in the 100 free 2IM amongst the 400. So like, what do you consider yourself, and is your event schedule likely to change at all?
My schedule, I'll probably stick with, the same events. I definitely would consider myself like a mid-distance swimmer. I actually swim fly. That's what I swam in college, but they don't offer 100 fly for my classification, which stinks. USOPC, please change that. But yeah, so I consider myself like a mid-distance swimmer.
So what are the available events then for your classification?
50 free, 100 free, 400 free, 200 IM, 100 back, 100 breast.
Okay, why no breaststroke or butterfly? Because of your head slamming the wall situation?
No, because we have the 200 IM. They just like only give us a certain amount of events, which is ridiculous because I would love to swim the 800 free and I would love to swim the 100 and 200 fly. Yeah, it's just not an option. And they usually change them every quad. So in 2016, they had 100 fly, but they didn't change it this year, like after Tokyo. I don't know why, which kind of stinks for me, but it's okay.
Maybe you need to get on like an athlete committee for, I don't know.
There's a lot of athlete committees that need to be happening in para.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, Christy was telling us when we spoke about like classification doping and how, that's just a whole thing, that evaluation process, and it's ever changing and the events are changing. And, it's just like a whole different world, really. But it's not just like a different world for able-bodied swimmers who are used to going to, able-bodied competitions. It's a different world for all para swimmers too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like every classification like deals with something different. For me, obviously, my classification. There's no politics. There's no drama. Like, you're wearing blackout goggles. Like, your goggles have to be checked multiple times. Like, we're all seeing nothing in the pool. So it's at least that's super simple for me.
Yeah, totally. Well, on the blackout goggle note, what do you think Katie Ledecky could go in a 400 free with blackout goggles?
See, if she's never swam with them before, you know what? I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to race Katie in a 400 with blackout goggles. I think that she wouldn't be able to figure out the technique quick enough to be able to move efficiently. And I think she would probably crash a lot and not be able to nail her turn. So, but it's Katie Ledecky. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like she would definitely be in like the low fives. That's actually, I don't know. I would say low fives. I'm going to give her that.
All right. Well, we want to see it. Well, Jackie,
Yeah.
come get it. Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, what are some things that actually, let's talk about outside of the pool. What are you typically doing on the weekend? What do you listen to? Watch or what? Yeah, what are you consuming right now? What are you reading?
Well, the reading isn't really happening. I'm just kidding.
No, I thought you said you listen to audiobooks.
I do listen to audiobooks. I do like audiobooks. The Britney Spears book, I love the drama. I loved the drama. And mostly on the weekends, that's when I train through the weekend. Monday is my day off. But I'll focus on, making content after practices and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like there's never like a real day off. I feel like I have like 2 full-time jobs that I have to do. So for the most part, weekends is usually filled with traveling or making content. I try to schedule sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I try to schedule my partnerships and traveling and all that stuff on the weekends so that I'm not missing too much. So I'm usually traveling a lot on the weekends.
So when you meet someone new and they ask you what you do for a living, how do you answer that question?
I feel like it depends. I'm very proud of what I do. So I'll either say I'm a professional athlete or I do social media, because I feel like they're both really cool and confusing answers for people to understand. So I love that. I wish I could see their faces where I'm like, hi, I do social media. They're probably okay.
Well, how did you develop the social media thing? Did that just kind of happen to you? I mean, obviously there's intentionality behind it now as the following has grown, but I mean, how did you get into that space and sharing your story?
Yeah, it started as almost like a way of therapy for me. I was kind of sharing my life and my journey and the ups and the downs, and I noticed that people were relating to it, and I kind of grew the following of people that understand this, and people that are also blind, and then people that are getting bullied, and people that are just different. So I kind of grew that following, and then I started, once I became secure and comfortable with myself, if you know anything about me, I have a lot of humor. So I like to turn my trauma into comedy. So I started doing a lot of dark humor things. And then I kind of grew the haters and the people that are ignorant and they don't really understand disabilities. And I'm able to hopefully educate and teach them something.
All these people that would kick the blind girl out of practice, those are the haters.
I know. So rude. They really would.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, John.
So I think we're downplaying. You have a huge social media following, especially on TikTok. So like you said, you're doing different things on your channels. Who would you say is your audience, or do you feel like you have a specific audience on your channels?
Yeah. So I would rate both Instagram and TikTok are very different places for me. I feel like TikTok, I have a group of very, very, very supportive, loyal people. And then the other ones are people that follow me because they're trying to learn, or they like the dark humor, or they're trying to be mean to me. One of the above. And then Instagram is full loyal, you say something bad about me, they're coming for you, that type of group. But I love them both. I feel like on TikTok, I'm able to show my goofy, funny side and share that with the world, and people will just understand it. You know what I mean? There's someone out there that's going to relate to, I don't know, me having to wax my mustache before practice. Someone's going to relate to that out there. And then I can also kind of get down to their level. I mean, nowadays people have no attention span. So I try to make things interesting and funny, but in the same way educating, so that people see like, oh my gosh, like, okay, this is funny. This is something I could watch. But at the same time, they might not be thinking it, but in the back of their head, they're breaking down that stereotype that they have about blindness, which is awesome. And yeah, that's kind of why I do it. I'm trying to change the way people see the visually impaired and blind.
I love that. And you're so positive and bubbly, and you have such a good energy.
Thank
Like,
you.
have people on the channels that are there, you even said it, that are there to be mean. Like, how many negative comments are you getting? And then how do you deal with those negative comments?
Yeah. I mean, when I first started social media, I was not able to deal with the comments. Like, I was at a point in my life where this was me just trying to share, my life and who I am. And I would not be able to handle any mean comments. So my mom was up day in and day out, like deleting bad comments and hate, because what people don't understand is that something like this can happen to them very quickly. But they still like to, go type away, even though they would never say it to my face. So my mom would be deleting that throughout the night, like throughout the day, all the time. Now I'm like secure in myself and like I can handle it. And listen, on TikTok, I definitely get a lot more hate comments because people are very ignorant and they don't understand. And it's not even their fault because, I mean, I don't know if you guys have children, or even when you were growing up in the school districts, like, did you ever learn about people with disabilities? Probably not. Like, do you see people on social media with disabilities, like showing their life and stuff? Probably not. Maybe nowadays you see a few more, but like, it's not something that is really shown in Hollywood. Like, when you think of someone who's blind in Hollywood, you think of like a Stevie Wonder situation with sunglasses, walking like a zombie with like his cane. And that's not how it is. And it's not their fault that they don't understand that, but they believe that basically I have to be put in this box where I look a certain way, act a certain way, and be a certain way. And if I'm not in this box, then I'm faking and that I'm just lying about everything, which isn't true, because I'm trying to show them like, okay, this is how I am a professional athlete as someone who's blind. This is how I do makeup. This is how I dress cute. Like, this is how I do these things, and break down those stereotypes.
How do you edit videos?
For the most part, my mom helps me edit, and I, for the most part, don't really have to edit a lot of my videos. I'll kind of put the timer on for like the amount of time that I'll be talking, and that's basically it. The video will like be good. Or I do a lot of like lip sync videos, where it's kind of like that. And then there's voiceover, obviously, that helps me with editing. So it'll tell me like the amount of seconds that I need to do. And then you just listen to, okay, like if I just want how I do something blind, and then I can crop it to just how I do something blind, or how I do, and then crop it. Do you know what I mean? The same way that you would do it, the same way that you would do it, except whatever you're seeing, I would be hearing.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
my mom do it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if you would do it all on your own, and I've seen some of your content where you mentioned some of the process around it.
Yeah. I also just try to make my videos that don't need editing. Like, I try to, make the videos perfect timing and everything so that there is less editing to be done.
How does Radar feel about being a social media star?
He's just a king. He's over here snoring. I'm like shoving him every once in a while because he's getting really loud with his snoring. He's a star and everyone loves him.
How old is Radar now?
Radar's 4.
Okay. Have you ever had other dogs? Did you grow up with pets?
We have another dog, a golden doodle. He's awful. He is very mean and very sassy and just very golden doodle like. And Radar's the king. But yeah, I've always loved animals, loved dogs. And yeah, but I don't consider Radar a dog. He's an angel.
Is he able to travel to meets with you?
Yeah, he'll be coming to Indy and Minnesota. I won't be taking him to Paris because, as you know, it gets very chaotic and you're traveling from the village to this place and it gets hectic. So for his mental health and sanity, I'm going to be leaving him home.
How does that impact you when you travel to meets and you don't have some of the same infrastructure that you're used to at home?
Yeah, it's definitely stressful. And I feel like a lot of times it can definitely affect the way that you swim because I'm always kind of like on edge or stressed out, which isn't very healthy. But I'm learning. I always try to have a sighted guide that helps me get around. So it'll probably be like one of the coaches or one of the staff members at the meet, and they'll kind of always help me get around and direct me. I'm good with my cane, but not great with my cane. Like there are some blind people that can like get around and like know exactly where they're going with their cane. And this thing's 3 feet long. How does it know where to take me? Like at least radar knows like find a chair, find the supermarket. Like, I don't know. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Quite the adjustments. All right, Anastasia, we got a few rapid fire questions for you. Okay. What's the hardest race in swimming?
400 IM.
Paralympic gold or world record?
World record.
In what?
I would say break my world record in the 400. We'll see. Actually, you know what? I take it back. I'm going to say gold medal because no one can ever take the gold medal from you, but they can take the world record.
Okay, but what world record what do you want to go? What's the goal time?
Let's see. This is like high hopes, but we'll say a 452. That will be nice. The goal time.
452 is totally in reach. I thought you were going to say, sub 440. I think you got that.
Oh my gosh. Maybe.
Go get it.
God's ears.
Okay. We all got to know. GP in the pool.
Actually, no. I'm actually pretty good with that. It depends. If it's like a really nice pool, I won't do it. But if I'm like in the middle of a set and it's already a really nasty pool, I'm like in the middle of grinding anyways, I'm not going to get out and like go to the bathroom. So it's kind of 50-50. But like no one needs to know that. I don't pee. I'm a girl. Come on.
Respect the nice pools. Yeah. Okay. What are some of your favorite accounts that you follow on social media?
That's a really good question. I love all of basically all of the disabled influencers. I think it's amazing that they're trying to share their life and put people in perspective of like what their life is like. So I think that any disabled creator or anyone who is disabled who's trying to become a creator, like I love that. And like, I support you. Yeah.
What's the meanest comment you've ever gotten on social?
Oh my God, stuff I can't even say on here.
You can say it. We are wide open.
No, I've gotten some like really like bad stuff, like really bad. Like you think that like faking blindness, like that's nothing compared to some of the stuff that I've had, like really, really bad, where they say like, they'll call you like really bad names and be like, Paralympics is for blah, blah, blah. And like, really just some really bad stuff.
All right. We know soccer didn't work out and you found swimming, but what's one Olympic sport you would be best at besides swimming?
Oh my goodness. I would love to get into goalball, which is a Paralympic, like visually impaired sport. It's basically the combination of soccer and volleyball, but these girls are badass. Like, basically, there's a bell in the ball and they like hit it across and you have to defend your goal or whatever, but they hit the ball like 90 miles per hour. I don't have the echolocation abilities for that, but I still would like to try.
Yeah, you don't have it yet. Do you have that around you? Do you have access to try it?
I don't have access to, actually I might. I haven't really looked into it, but I also possibly after, these games, I might want to get involved in triathlons because I do love I don't love running, but I love biking and swimming, and running will just have to come with the package.
Now you're speaking my language. All right, we can talk try. Okay, what's one of the most inspiring moments that you've experienced through your journey, either swimming or non-swimming related?
I would say all of the other Paralympians. I think that they are so inspirational, and the stories that they have behind their journey is incredible. And I wish that there was a way that they could share their stories and have a light shined on it, because it's so deserved and amazing. Like, these other athletes inspire me every day.
What's something you're most looking forward to do in Paris outside of the pool?
Eat a croissant. Duh.
How do we take it though? Are you a sweet, savory? What are we doing?
Sweet. Both. Everything.
Yes, the answer is yes. All the croissants.
Yes, all of them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with these solo practices, I fear this question, but how often are you doing social kick?
Oh, that was a really sad question. Well, you know what? Sometimes the old guy next to me likes to chat with me, like, while I'm swimming and he's doing his little Boca breaststroke. We interact occasionally.
What about the Masters group? Are you doing social kick at Masters?
That's true too, but I'm always on the other, I like to stay on the right lane line, and then everyone else is like on the lane line, and so like we never like interact. And then I don't know if someone's talking to me or to someone else, so I just like go.
Oh, fair enough. All right. Well, Anastasia, it's been so good to hang out with you and learn about your journey. We're so excited to follow your journey all the way through to Paris and beyond. For those who are very unlikely don't follow you, because everyone does, where can they find you?
My handles are Anastasia_K_P on TikTok and Instagram, and send me a DM if you came from this video.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out. That's it for this episode of Social Kick. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick, and you can find all of our content on our website at thesocialkick.com.